All right, welcome in. Cozy little corner here we have along the shores of Lake Murray. I'm joined by, I really feel out of place here. I literally just moved the hole that makes the words. And I am joined by, collectively, 4 Angler of the Year titles. Brendan Palnick and, of course, Davey Height. And none of us expected to be sitting here at this time.
No, definitely not. But when I did, not going to lie, when I saw that we were delayed, I was a little hopeful that it was just going to get postponed because I didn't want to miss an hour or an hour and a half of the 2-hour bite window, because I thought, well, I was thinking the cut weight's going to be around 15 pounds, but if we miss the entire 2-hour bite window in the morning, there's going to be a bunch of guys that don't have limits. And so I think on the leaderboard and fishing-wise, from a spectator standpoint, the overall tournament will look a lot better by us not fishing the rest of the day.
Davey, is he just giving us anglers speak? They're never going to catch them. Is it really that important to get the morning bite?
So I have heard that all week from the anglers. I'll just say that is very surprising to hear.
Guys will catch that. Guys, there will always be guys in this group that figure them out, but it is not the Lake Murray of last year. So you cannot compare it to what happened last year. Last year you could run around. If there was a group of fish there, they stayed there. They may come up busting in the afternoon, but even if they didn't come up busting, you could at least still catch 1 or 2 on top water and stuff. Like, I just threw top water the entire day. You could catch them on a glide bait around docks. There were fish spawning and cruising. There's still all of those things happening, but it just seems like there's a lot less of them doing it. And we're here later. I think the fish are more pressured. And that morning bite, to me, and everybody I've talked to, seems to be very important. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if the majority of the checks are cut within the first 2 hours of every day of this tournament.
Wow. That must have made people awkward this morning when, I never even thought about it like that. But and you put on top of that we're literally 2 days, 2 competition days away from the midway point in this season. Yeah. And nobody has to, you don't have to sugarcoat it. You look at our Angler of the Year list, there's a bunch of people that are used to contending for the title that aren't inside the classic cut. This is pressure cooker time.
It is. It's really coming down to it, and you come into an event like this where, we all probably circled it on the map after last year and like, this is going to be a blast. Because it was one of the most fun tournaments last year. What's better than just throwing a topwater all day long and catching them? And that's still there. It's just not happening to the extent that it did last season. And it's really going to be a hero or zero thing. You can if you make the right calls and you get on the right place and the fish are fired up, you can have the most epic day ever. But like, for example, yesterday I tried to run a bunch of new stuff, look at new areas of the lake, and I caught 1 bass yesterday. I never caught a bass in that first couple hours because they're not on every single point. And so if you don't stop on the right places in that bite window, you can then show up at the right places later and maybe get a bite, maybe not get a bite. So to me, it's going to be really important. And now I say that, obviously with a grain of salt, like, these guys are really good. Someone's going to figure out how to catch them throughout the day, or a guy may have found, a couple points where there's enough fish that they continue to bite and you're able to catch them. But it's not going to be as hot and heavy as it was last year.
Wow. Do you find that shocking, Davey?
Yes. Yes and no. I certainly agree with the fact that the lake is more pressured than it was last year.
Yeah.
And tournament results are easy to follow and legal to follow for you guys, no doubt. And you just look at what's happened here in the last year. When Bassmaster magazine named this the best bass fishing destination in the Southeast, #1 in the Southeast, it got a lot of attention, and that's great. But it's still a great fishery, and it'll still take a lot of fish here to win.
It will.
That being said, every tournament since last year, last January, right on through when the elite was here in May, right on through the fall of the year, right on. I mean, you just look. There's not been a tournament where you would say it's been tough. Not a single one.
Yeah.
But the fish are more pressured, no doubt about it, and they're wiser to your tricks and to my tricks and to everyone's tricks.
And I think the leaderboard, when you look at it on paper, it will still look almost just as good.
Yep.
But it won't. It from like an actual fishing standpoint, it may not be as good. Where last year you may have caught 20 to 25 fish in a day, you may catch 10 or 11. The fish are still healthy. They're still there. There's still big ones. So the top end weights are still going to be high. I think the check weights will be a little bit lower than what they were. But it's still going to take 22 a day or something like that, I would guess.
I think it'll be in the 80s to win.
Yeah.
It could be 81. It could be 87 or 8. But, I think it'll be in the 80s.
Yeah.
Like it was last year. But I totally agree that if you look down the leaderboard, it's going to look different from 50th down than it did last year.
Yes,
No
correct.
doubt.
You're not going to have as many of those guys that caught 16 and a half, 16 and 3/4 a day and missed the cut.
Correct.
You know, it was like there was 15 pounds all the way down, it seemed like, through the whole entire leaderboard.
Yeah.
And I just don't think you'll see that as much this year, but it'll still be great.
Yep.
Bassmaster Live is going to be awesome because the fish that are biting are, they're aggressive. Like there's going to be amazing topwater blowups. But like you said, the pressure, a lot more guys know the herring deal now than they did when we came here the first time I came.
Yeah.
Right, 2011, when Casey won here, which is the last time the cicadas hatched here. If you didn't know that.
Wow.
Because they're a 13-year cicada.
Oh, I've heard there's 7. I've heard there's 13. I've heard there's 17. Which cicada are we talking about?
The current one.
The 13.
The current one hatched last time, my rookie season here in 2011.
I don't know if I believe you. But, hey, here's an idea. I know we're live on Facebook, on YouTube, on a bunch of platforms, of course, Bassmaster.com. Let us know. Hey, they're just on cue.
Hey, look at that
There's a
little guy.
cicada. I mean, what show delivers this kind of...
Can you look at
Dave will show you how to make a cicada squeal.
Yeah, at the back.
Oh, boy.
Hear him?
Oh, I can hear him. I don't know if they can hear him at home.
Me. That was the cicada, totally.
They sound like little velociraptors.
I was the first one to eat a cicada. I did it.
Pickled pig feet last. It is your turn.
I've already eaten a cicada in my life,
Hey,
and there's certain.
I served spaghetti for supper
You
last
did,
night. I
you
didn't
did,
cook
and it was
but it's-
great.
Now your lunch.
I'm not
menu-
eating that. No, I'm a professional at my line of work.
I think it's perfect if he just stays right here.
I mean, we'll leave them
Probably
there.
will.
But let us know in the comments, wherever you're watching, because I am kind of patrolling them here. Let us know the truth in the cicada. Is it every 7 years, every 11 years, every... You
I
said
think
11?
there's different. No, I think this is a 13-year.
A 13-year cicada.
Yeah. And see,
Wow.
here's the funny thing.
You can tell he's got a bad
Carl
attitude.
Jochimson were talking about this. He marshaled that event. So
Oh, yeah, that's right.
he marshaled here in 2011.
Wow.
And he remembers the cicada hatch. And he went up the river after the tournament and threw a tiny little popper and caught the giant grass carp, like 40 and 50-pound grass carp on a tiny little popper. Because they're eating the cicadas. And this week you'll see, like, everything eats them. Like, way more stuff than I realized ate them. Like, there's giant schools of catfish out there. And they're coming up and just and eating them. And then, I didn't know this, but there's squirrels. The squirrels eat them. Like
What?
Yeah, the squirrels eat them like they're little Piz or something. Like
Pez?
Pez, yeah, not Piz.
Piz, that's a different thing.
Piz Customs.
I mean, you're free to leave anytime if you need to.
Slightly different. Yes, Pez. They're like that. They're like just popping little Skittles in their mouth.
Okay.
Skittles? Yeah. Or Pez?
Both. But they're squirrels. The squirrels literally reach up like this and go and grab them, and then they just stick them in their mouth. I thought squirrels.
Wait, it was loud there. Grab him again.
Listen.
Oh, he's flip-flopped. Hey, flip back over. Yeah,
People for the ethical treatment of cicadas.
Yeah. Get 1 million of those, and that's what it sounds like.
Yeah, that's why the trees
what we've been
are
listening to
buzzing.
for the last few years.
Take that, Phil Nye, the science guy. We delivered the sound of the cicada live.
I don't know why, why they make that sound. I don't know.
Oh, boy,
Someone
we're getting
knows.
deep there.
Someone knows.
We're not
I-
there 13 years or 7 years or 17 years, and
Well,
we don't.
And neither do our viewers, it turns
Well,
out.
they make sense.
They're all over the place. They have no idea. But one thing I want to know, and I want to hear it from both of you guys, because you guys have both dealt with these. This point of the season, like I said, this is basically the midway point of the season. Pressure is on. I mean, we see it every year. It gets... If anything is going to happen, if anybody's going to get stressed, it's the second half of the season when everything's on the line. You're so eager to get this event started, and then all of a sudden you come down here, you listen to your pump-up music on the way here, you're ready to do this, and then brakes are put on, you got to wait for a day. As a competitor, how does that affect you?
It affects everybody differently, and that's one of those things that you can't control the weather and situations like that, but you can control how you respond to it and how you react to it. And some guys, that they will succumb to that pressure and they'll buckle under it, and then other guys will just carry on and do their deal. And so you'll see both sides of it, right? And that's part of this sport. You're going to lose more than you're going to win, and you have to be able to take all the small wins out of it, right? So you get a postponed day, you're like, oh, well, it gives me a little bit more time to work on tackle, or a little bit more time to prep if you didn't get to do it yesterday. And so I think there's ways that you can turn it into positives. If you do show up and you're all pumped up here, the hard part is you drink your coffee and you do get all amped up, and then they're like, oh, we're not going. You're not going back to sleep.
Yeah.
So for a few hours, you're like, okay, what am I going to do? It's still dumping rain. I'm not going to go sit out in the boat and get drenched on tackle. So for me, it just involves hanging out with kids and dropping my truck off at Toyota.
Your kids. I thought you were calling me and Davey kids.
No. I won't give away your ages, but my kids.
Davey, as a competitor, how did these kind of things affect you, and is there anything you can do to make them affect your result less?
Brandon's spot on. Everyone deals with it differently. I think the big thing, or I know the big thing, is to stay positive and not, I would have caught them if they'd have gone today, and start making up all these scenarios in your mind. Just stay positive, and, just like this morning, some anglers were thinking maybe it would be canceled. I just don't think you can think about that. You show up to the ramp and you prepare to go fishing.
Yep.
And when you don't, then you try to stay positive. You show up the next day and prepare to go fishing. Prepare, show up, and go fishing. I think it's just real important not to let those things. You should, you look at the weather as an angler and prepare for the conditions. But when anglers start, well, we're probably not going to go the night before, I think that's really bad.
Yeah.
And then when you do have to sit around, like you say, you're amped up. You're not going to. The great thing would be go right back to your bed, hotel, house, wherever you stayed, and get some sleep. But you can't do that at that point because you were ready to go.
Yeah.
But stay positive. Prepare to go fishing the next day. Look at the weather forecast and go fishing next day. And we talk about this a lot. But I don't think you can talk about it too much. Every single day of fishing on the Bassmaster Elite Series is equally important.
100%.
Every single day. Whether it takes 20 pounds to be in 10th place, 30 pounds, or 10 pounds.
Yeah.
And stay positive. Look at the task ahead of you for each and every day and go do your best. And don't complain about the sun came up a minute late or the clouds weren't there. Just that's nothing but negative, a negative attitude towards things. And that's easy to do. I was there, been there, done that. You have to. It's easy for us in life to, half empty kind of guy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's easy to be that way, but you're not going to be very successful if you're that way in any sport.
Definitely not.
Speaking of success, we've learned more about the cicadas. Here's the
okay.
deal.
Please do tell.
Mega hatch happening this year, guys. Not just the 13-year cicada, but the 13 and the 17-year cicada come together and hatch here. Also, not only squirrels eat them, we have learned copperheads love them. Some people actually refer to them as copperhead candy.
Oh.
And my daughter and now a bunch of other people have come in and told me what's right, and my daughter knows wildlife.
Of course you would
Yeah,
know.
of course we should have thought of it. Why do they make the noise? The males make the noise. It is their mating call. I mean, why do any men will do strange things?
Of course he is. You want me to grab him again real quick for you?
If you like to play with him, it looks like. Is that, how much is that going to affect this tournament, or can you even say, like?
I have no idea, because it's only the second time in my career that I've ever been around them. So I don't know if it's like a mayfly hatch deal where, you know, that definitely affects things when we see the mayflies. Obviously, everything eats them, so I think that it has to have some effect, but I don't know. At least to me, it doesn't seem like it has the effect of changing the fish the way that like a mayfly hatch does. Like I don't see a bunch of bass setting up under shady trees and like getting ready to feed on them there. I think they're just as content of feeding on them floating around out there in the middle off of a point. They're like, oh, herring, oh, sweet, cicada. Like they don't really care. I think there's so much forage and different types of forage in this lake. It's so healthy that it's just kind of another thing for them, but it's not an overpowering thing from what I can tell.
Gotcha. I'm going to table a weird idea that I talked to Davey about this morning. And first of all, safety is always the number one concern when we get any weather situation. I mean, you don't want to take any risks with anybody. So this has got nothing to do with today's call, but something that I've thought of for a long... Come on, flip over, Chuckers. I was distracted.
Wait till you're mid-cast and one flies down your back.
I was with you for the first sentence or two, but I'm like...
So, what if Fantasyland thing, something to make the sport kind of safer, better, in a situation like this, where you have a day that a lot of this morning you could have fished. I mean, this is 2 bands. We've had a band come through. There's another one coming through this afternoon. What if we lived in a world where each angler had a transponder in their boat? They have beacons you can get. Mm-hmm. That can get you whether you're on top of Mount Everest. It doesn't matter. But that beacon goes off as a competitor, and you know that you immediately have to go to shore. Reel the cast you have made in, and then when that beacon goes back on, it's play on.
Yeah.
So days like today, it would be even for everybody. It would save us in situations where you're on big bodies of water where a storm comes through on one side of the body of water and it doesn't the other. It would keep it equal between everybody. Is that an insane thought, or do you think that's something that could literally happen?
No, it definitely could happen. And I have 2 thoughts on it. One being the safety part of it. That's always a great thing, because you'll have some guys that'll just like wait it, like they'll just fish through it, and then you got marshals and camera guys sitting there.
I've certainly done that. I've been one of those guys.
Yeah, I have too. And then you have other guys that are like, see a flash of lightning 3 miles away, and they're like, nope, under a bridge, under a dock. So it does create fairness in that aspect. But then I also look at it and I'm like, if you just happen to be on the part of the lake that, like, we're not fishing in a controlled environment. Like, we don't have control over the lake or the weather. It's public bodies of water, so we don't have control over the people that are out there or the party boats driving over your stuff. Like, and so I don't know how much at the same time that I want that controlled being on the water. Right? So it's like, if we go, I still want people to be able to make their own decisions. And if you happen to be on a part of the lake that gets hit with a storm, then that's a decision that you need to make, right? And that's like, I guess, kind of just bad luck that you're on that section of the lake. But to make the entire body of water or the entire field like a more even playing field. There's certain things that I want to be even, and there's other things that I want to still remain not a competitive advantage, but like a decision-making process. If you see a storm coming and you're fishing a section of the lake, you can crank your motor up and you can run to the part that's not going to get hit.
Gotcha.
Or you can hide under something. So it's
Screw safety.
No, that's why I led with the part of the safety. Like, it's a good thing from a safety aspect, because not everyone's going to say, okay, I'm going to take 10 minutes and bail out or hide under a bridge. And so you have to have things in place. That's why we have things in place like today where, okay, we're just not going to go because there's going to be enough storms throughout the day that it's not going to be worth it. So I'm both directions.
The one thing I thought about is, it's a little bit of a factor here on a place like Lake Murray that is 14 miles wide at its widest point, but not so much. But if we're St. Lawrence River, Brandon Polnick chooses to go out in Lake Ontario and you're 12 miles offshore, you get that beacon that you have to go to shore. That's a different deal there. There's 4 footers and you've got to go to shore for the storm to pass.
Yeah, I guess the simplest way to put it is I want a guy to have to live with the decisions that he makes in a competition. So it's like if you decided to do that and then you are in the weather, you either want to have to like find safety and that's on you, or and so it's a really tough call. And like you said, if you're 12 miles offshore at Lake Ontario, you might be better just to spot lock and just huddle down rather than try to drive your boat back to shore through a storm.
I've said drive to shore, but get to safety, be where you're safest. You can't fish
Glue Island
any
might
further.
be your safety. not
Kingston. I'm just trying to find a way for the hundreds, if not thousands, of people that literally plan to avoid work all day today by watching you guys fish. And they don't like to see, okay, it's cool, we're going to have a championship Monday, so don't worry, you don't have to work on Monday. You can watch us. But, best case for everybody is to have the event go off on the days that it's scheduled to go off on.
Yeah, if you can look at the weather and say, okay, we're still going to get 5 hours of fishing time, right? If you look at the storms, you're like, okay, we're going to miss an hour here probably, miss 2 hours in this section. That's fine.
One thing you did bring up, though, I want to talk about a little bit, is making those decisions as an angler. And the angler bears some responsibility for their safety. But I also understand, and I mentioned, and you said, you had too, sometimes maybe I wasn't doing the safest thing that I should do because of my competitive nature and the money on the line and my need to do well in the event. So you have to think about that and the safety of the cameraman or the marshal or whatever. But there's also, you're an experienced boater. You're the captain of your vessel. You should bear some responsibility in your everyday routine. Everything you do, you should think about, is that a good choice or not? Is that a safe choice? Is that is that a good choice to go catch a fish? But is that a good choice? Is that going to be safe to run out to Duck Island? Is that going to be, you have to understand and
that's the
make those decisions wisely and not rely on somebody or something to always make those for you, and then also have that thing or person to blame it on when things don't go your way.
And that's where my hesitation came from of having something like that. It was like, I want, if you make a decision, you have to deal with those consequences, good or bad, right? You have to live with the responsibility of that decision, and I don't want to lose sight of that. So that'd be my only concern of it.
Well, it turns out, reading the comments, that they all agree with you guys. I'm an idiot. I shouldn't even have thought of that idea. But they're all kind of stating the same thing, to let the angler make the decision.
But if we were out there by ourselves, it's one thing. Because then, really, the angler is living with his decision, right? You get struck by lightning, he made that decision. But if a marshal or a camera guy doesn't want to, then you end up in an issue, right, where the angler wants to continue fishing, Marshall's not comfortable and then something bad does happen, then you run into an issue.
Yeah.
And so that's where you have to not let the competitive nature or like the drive to win overcome those things. Mm-hmm. Right? And that's where it gets tricky, because like you talked about starting out this segment of guys getting halfway through the season, not only is Angler of the Year start to be on the line, classics on the line, but guys' careers are on the line. Requalifying to be here, the thing that you've worked your entire life for, becomes on the line, and that will push guys. They will push the limits more so than they may on a normal day.
Real quick story about, I'm talking about making good decisions as an angler, as an elite angler, but also having that drive to do well. One of my first couple classics, it wasn't my first one, but about the second or third classic, thunderstorm right at takeoff, but we go. And I was within sight of a bridge. And I mean, this is the classic. These guys are and I see, I'm pretty sure I saw Woo Daves and, some guys that great outdoorsmen. And it's cracking. And I'm fishing and I'm catching some. And I'm not, I think I'm invincible. If I had a brain, I should have gone under the bridge, because there were some great fishermen that did. And I kept fishing right through it, and I'm telling you, it popped, hit trees and stuff around me. I mean, it's just a miracle. But I'll never forget, this is when we didn't have a lot of Japanese press people at our events, but I had a Japanese media person with me. And I remember turning and looking, maybe I caught a fish, but it's pouring and it's cracking around me. And I'm like, they're over there under the bridge, they're biting. And I turn and look, and he is balled up under the console, under the driver's console, like on the hot foot for a pillow, like just scared to death. And he should have been, and I should have been too, but I was just too dumb. But that's when, after I just said you should make those decisions wisely, there's people like me that wouldn't necessarily always make those decisions so wisely.
And the last thing that you should be balancing when you're making said decision is your career, is finances. That's where I think that's where it gets up. Because, I've done it myself. This sport in general does it, but we glorify the guy that stands out there in the 5-footers. Yeah. When you made the run. I remember pros coming up to Brandon Polnick before he left that morning, when you won on Lake Ontario, making the run all the way from Waddington, and guys being like, be careful. Like, they were really because at the time, that was a giant run.
No, not to my knowledge, nobody had really done it at that point. I mean, some local guys I'm sure had made super long runs like that, but it was a huge run. And it wasn't like I had 10 or 15 other guys going with me. There was, I never.
Just you.
Once I got to Alexandria Bay, I never saw another boat. Not another bass boat. Not in 3 days of practice. Not in 4 days of the tournament.
Not even the day after when we went fishing.
Not even the day after. There were no bass fishermen out there. And it was just, it was crazy. But people were concerned, are you going to do it again? Yeah. But I was also, 25 years old, right? And you do wisen up a little bit in your years, I think.
Maybe not. I did spend my first practice day down there. I just didn't find them like he did.
You're calculated. You have more calculated risks, I guess. You're a little bit more calculated. And I think that makes a difference. When I had kids, that kind of made a difference.
Changes the way you think.
Yeah. Last year, we were at St. Clair, and we had a giant thunderstorm come through, and our campground got hit by a bolt of lightning, and it hit the transponder 3 campsites away from our camper, and all the power went out. The whole entire campground lost power. It was this giant boom, giant flash, and ever since then, that was one of those instances where I guess it kicked me over the edge a little bit more of being if there's lightning around, maybe not just fish through it the entire time. I'll stay out there as long as anybody, but if lightning actually starts hitting the ground around me, I'm like, maybe I should find something to hide under.
Absolutely.
We're getting lots of feedback from people here.
On which topic? Because we've talked.
Well,
about
a lot of people are
things.
obsessed with. They think I said Phil Nye, the science guy. I said Bill Nye. I mean, maybe I said Phil, but I meant Bill. But I'm sticking with it. I said Bill. But another guy brought something up interesting, and this is ask some questions. I mean, I'm watching right now on the Facebook chat. So if you're there and you want to ask some questions. But let's table one thing that somebody brought up in the comments already, and it's a penalty at Bass, a penalty box. There's some people, I mean, that obviously was very highly publicized. Trey McKinney spent a little time in the penalty box the last tournament. And the weird thing about the penalty box is some people think that was started there. I mean, we had anglers in the penalty box at this year's Bassmaster Classic. I don't know when it started, but we've been doing it for years. And to me, I think it's a great penalty because it's not football. It's not, you guys are working hard to make it. You want you to have every opportunity to fish, but you need to be penalized. And financially, it's one of the worst ways.
You have to live with the decisions you make.
Casey actually won a Bassmaster Classic after being in the penalty box.
Yeah.
But the penalty box is nothing new.
No, and the anglers voted that in.
Yeah.
Anglers don't vote rules in. Like if the rules are like ridiculous, they're not going to let the anglers vote any rule in. But some things are subjective, and that's certainly one of them. And that's when I was fishing. You were fishing. I mean, it's like, hey, to lose your whole day or to lose your day's catch, that's a little too harsh for 6 fish instead of 5. It's and a lot of other things. It's just a little harsh. The cut and dry. Harold Sharp and Dewey Kendrick. It was. Your whole tournament or whole day, there was nothing any easier than that. You're lucky if it only costs you 1 day, but some things are just not that severe.
Yeah.
So I think all of the fishermen should, and at one time did agree that the penalty box is a good thing.
Yeah, and it's different. It goes based on the severity of the infraction.
Yep.
Right. It can go as long as they see or deemed fit for whatever the rule is that is broken, and so that time changes depending on what happens. I've had to sit in the penalty box before. We were launching out of Metro Park, and at that time there was no cutoff, so like you could drive all the way to Green Bay. You can't physically make it there and back, but literally everything attached to Lake St. Clair was open. So every Great Lake was open. I didn't even think about it. And me and Tiffany went on a cruise to Mackinac Island.
Oh, wow.
Not even thinking that, I'm on tournament waters. Because you physically can't drive there and back in a bass boat.
You were out there
in 8
looking.
hours.
I know what you were up to.
Yeah. Looking for those spawners, weren't you?
It clicked. It clicked halfway, like across to the island on the boat, and I had to call Trip, and I was like, "Trip, I'm literally on the boat right now, driving to Mackinac Island. Like, I don't know what you want me to do, but here's the situation." And he's like, "Well, that's unfortunate." He's like, "Why'd you do that?" So literally, I didn't even think about it like being a problem because I wasn't going out there to find fish. Like, I'm on this giant cruise boat that we paid to go to the island. Right. And I had to sit in the penalty box the first day of the tournament because I was out there.
But the weird thing is we used to not talk about it. I will say that. Trip, Hall of Fame, tournament director. I love some Trip Weldon, but Trip wouldn't talk about it. Like, it was kind of just, we don't need to address it.
Yeah.
It is cool now that we're talking about it a little more because to me, it's nothing to be hit. You look at any other sport. I mean, everybody gets penalties in every single sport. And they're not intentional all the time.
No, there's nothing wrong with a penalty. I think it should all be put out there because it's generally a decision that an angler makes, whether it's on purpose or not on purpose, and then you live with those consequences. And it's not bad that it's out there. Like, you made the decision. That's what happened, and it informs people, right? Because a lot of people don't know all of the rules that we have. A lot of people don't know that if you see something, you have to report it. Like it's an infraction. If I see someone break a rule on the water and I don't report that, now I have broken a rule. It is literally written in our rules that you have to report an infraction. And so a lot of people didn't know that that was even a rule in our rule book. So I think it's good to put that kind of stuff out there and inform people of, the rules of the game that are maybe not always out there, right? Obviously, people know that you can only have 5 and not 6. Some of us know better than others.
You're not. How many times have you had that?
3.
3 times you've done it 6 fish.
I've won twice, and I'm finished in the top 10 the other time. So it is yet to affect my finish.
Unique question here. If you had the choice, which would you rather?
Oh boy.
A financial fine, or penalty box? That's not a fair question, I don't think, because that certain anglers will be like, whatever, let me pay. And then other anglers...
Penalty box for sure, because that's more even across the board. Everyone has 8 hours to work with in a given day of fishing, and that's really your most valuable resource is that time. And a guy coming in that's a rookie, $5,000 might make or break his year, and then another guy, that has a really successful business or something, $5,000 might not do anything to him. But an hour and a half is an hour and a half to either guy, right? And that can affect your tournament or not affect it.
Dave, you ever go in the penalty box? I mean, come on.
No.
Captain America, you didn't.
The only reason he didn't is because we didn't have it then.
What are you talking about? We've had it a long time. We've had it so long, I definitely was around when they had the penalty box.
Do you remember when it came in? Because it's been here as long as I can remember.
It's been here a long time.
2005, yeah.
2005.
Oh, so really the inception of the
I fished
elites.
for 12 years after that, by the way, Brandon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jeez almighty.
You're won some, too, during that time.
I remember him winning at Pickwick vividly.
Also did some incredible dancing. Some incredible.
It was impressive.
The
time for
cicada
you to-
just went.
People are trying to offer money for me to eat cicada. And there's some guy who keeps commenting, I bet you $50 that Mercer won't eat it for $50. And I'm like, yeah, I won't. You're right. I mean, I ate one, I guess, last time we were here, or during the cicada hatch, and Mark Zona bet me $144. And he did pay
Did he
that
pay?
$144. I mean, it took hounding, but I ate one.
So,
I'm not going to eat another, to be honest. I'm more mature now.
What would it take now? Factor in inflation. That was 2011.
I mean, there's no telling, Dave. Yeah. There's no telling. As this week goes on, it'll probably go down.
11,400.
I mean, it'd be almost 60%. So whatever that
Has to be. Has to be.
Just call it 1,000.
Even that. I mean, I'd eat one for 1,000, wouldn't you?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we better get 3 of them up here.
I need
We'll all eat one for
I need a
1,000.
cereal bowl of cicadas for 1,000.
Oh,
A cereal bowl for $1,000. Did you just
cicadas?
look at that
you
camera?
said a cereal bowl.
You
too.
said a cereal
You didn't say
bowl
a
full
small
of
one.
Not a big
cicadas.
one, like
no.
cereal bowl.
You can't use your kids' cereal bowls. You looked in front of a camera. You said you would eat. We're gonna have a fun week together, Brandon.
I don't think I can do
I might
it.
be able to raise 1,000.
I believe I can do it Saturday during the weigh-in. And the good news is you're going to make Saturday this week.
Do they have to be alive, or can they be dead?
I mean,
Could you imagine that just buzzing
I
in
feel
your
wrong.
gut?
You imagine that buzzing in your stomach like if you didn't chew them up good.
I feel wrong. I feel that one's been too nice to us.
That's the cicadas in my stomach.
I feel that's the wrong one to eat. He's been so docile and kind to us.
I've kind of become attached to that one now. You can't eat
There's
that
not
one.
a right one to eat.
There you go. There you go.
There you go.
Till he buzzes right in my ear. I've had a couple this week. I would not be surprised if someone this week on Bassmaster Live drops their rod in the water due to a cicada. Mid-cast one flies right in your ear or like down your shirt or something.
They'll
Oh
do
boy,
it.
people are bidding money. I mean,
I'll put up 500.
Yeah, one dude's putting up 500, another dude's putting up 100. I mean, just send the
We're
money to
almost
me
there.
and Davey. We'll make sure it happens.
I shouldn't be so cheap.
Yeah, that was I mean, I guess
Down there already.
they're.
He's going to get off of you. He heard
Yeah.
you did a cereal bowl of them. He doesn't want anything to do with you.
What kind of weight's going to win this event?
Somewhere in the 80s. Like Davey said, I think it'll be like mid to upper 80s, I'm guessing. I don't know. Someone will have found something magical where there's enough fish there, enough big ones, that something magical will happen. There's just too many fish in this place. There's too many healthy ones. A guy's not going to do it just going down the bank. But somebody or a few guys will find something really special.
Is this going to be a tournament with variety, do you think? Are we going to see guys fishing a lot of different ways, or is it?
I don't think you'll see as much. Like if you talk about all 102 anglers, the majority of them will be doing the same thing for most of the day. I personally don't think the angler that wins will do one thing for 4 days or one thing for all of each of the 4 days. I think you'll have to have a couple things going on. It's later, and there's some other things happening that certainly could be in play. So I don't think, when we came here in 11, there was only one thing to do, and Casey knew it. I knew it. There was people that knew it. Although I kind of got distracted and did some other things just because too much history. I went off, and it cost me the tournament. Several things did. A couple lost fish, and just I got drawn to where I grew up and doing some things that I knew I shouldn't be doing. But now I don't think you can go out there and just fish the shad or the herring spawn all 4 days, all day of all 4 days, and win.
Yeah. There's too many people that know how to do it, and those fish get too pressured, I think, to do that for 4 days straight. Unless a guy has found a couple places, maybe one that's not as obvious that those fish have pushed to, and he does it early. But it's not. I remember the first time we came here and the herring deal was happening, and you could just drive your trolling motor over a point and you would just see the bass laying everywhere on the point. I have seen that 0 times this week. Like you would just drive over the bank, over the point, you'd be like, oh, yep, there's a bunch of big ones right there. You'd mark them, and then you could come back and catch them. And I think one, pressure, two, later in the season, being here where I feel like things have just advanced a little bit more of that. So you have this mixture of fish spread out where, there are other things in play. And the guy that has, say he runs points for the first 2 or 3 hours and then has something else figured out, whether it's docks or brush or something.
A lot more grass in the lake now than
there's a lot of grass.
About.
There was 0 grass that I remember
11.
the first time. Last year there was some.
The emergent grass, the gator grass we call it, locals, just grows on the shoreline.
Yeah.
But hydrilla, eelgrass, milfoil, Illinois pondweed, they're all here now.
Yeah,
And
you
that
get
changes.
mid-lake down. It's everywhere. It's healthy. It grows out to 15 foot in some places, 16 foot. And that will always draw fish out,
Yep.
right? Like that. And so before, where I think those fish, they just stayed on those points because that was where the most food source was and everything. Now they have other options to go to, right? They have that grass, and it's just right there. Like it starts growing about where the rock and the points that they would do the herring deal on, about where that ends is now grass. And then they just, transition right there. And when you have a lake like this that is it's not that big of a lake, but the way that it kind of sprawls out and you get all those big flats and stuff, there's a lot of water for those fish to disperse out into when they start moving away from the bank.
The miles of shoreline is really incredible here.
Yeah.
And that's miles of shoreline equals lots of points.
Yeah,
And
100%.
Points are, this time of year what most people focus on.
Yeah.
So there's, in 2.5 days, you can't even begin to cover all the points on this.
It's not even close.
So.
Not even close. If you could spend 3 days in one like creek arm,
Yep.
and not even cover the whole entire thing, not cover every point.
Right.
But if you take off from Dreher Island here and you just try to run to the dam, you'll be there in no time.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's not a long ways to run, but if you try to just fish everything, you can't even come
Right.
close to touching it.
One of the weirdest things about events where guys run points, run and gun patterns is, and it used to blow me away, on the water with Overstreet, and we stop at a point, and we may
watch.
stop there because we're covering Brandon to start. Well, you catch fish, don't catch fish, move on. And before we've even packed up our stuff to move, another boat comes around the corner and looks at the point. It's like, oh, I got it all to myself. But the bubbles have not even dissipated from your boat leaving.
Yeah.
Like literally the amount, it is so amazing. And then you hear guys on stage be like, I got in the wrong rotation. Every time I went to a point, somebody was already there. But covering these events, it feels like there's always, if someone's not there, they just left there. It's so rare that, and the random thing is 7 anglers into that point rotation, that dude will blast them doing the exact same thing. So it's just, it's so amazing. Do you think that is, do you realize that as a competitor?
I think that happens way more than we realize everywhere. Like in a lot of places, like unless you're in a backwater and you're just making circles back there and you don't see anybody come in, I think that happens a lot because there's certain stretches or certain bays that just have more fish in them. Like they're just more fishy areas, and you don't realize that you're cycling through those places. And I think that happens a lot, and especially more so now with the technology, the mapping, right? I think the mapping is the biggest thing to that, where one, guys are more knowledgeable what to look for, and then two, you have it at your fingertips of exactly how the lake lays out. Like I can look at a Lake Master chart and tell you exactly where every turn, rock point, and once you learn how a lake sets up, you can generally start to look at the contours and say there's going to be rock on this point, or this point's going to be clay, or there's going to be grass in this ditch, just based purely on the contour lines and how that lake sets up.
You know what I was thinking? I wonder what Micah Bell's thinking. But Micah Bell, through technology, has let me know what he's thinking. Would you like to see an Elite Series event in your home state of Idaho?
Yes and no. I think it'd be super cool just to say that we did it. And then I also don't want to show off how awesome it is. So
you would also have to drive all the way back there before September.
Gee, I got to go home in the season.
Well,
That's
all
weird.
the way to that part of the country for the only thing. You normally don't do that.
Yeah. No, I mean,
When you leave.
Yeah, I haven't been home since like the end of January. I'll drive home after this event.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I'm going to drive because we got the dog. Tiff and the girls are going to fly. Because with the girls, it would take us like 5 days to drive there. And then we have to turn around, drive back to Alabama. I can make the trip with the dog a lot faster if we don't have 2 kids. And it just, no kid wants to sit in a car seat for 5 days. So we'll make that trip back home and then come back. And it would be really cool to see. I know they've talked to Coeur d'Alene a little bit, and it's just been hard to get the city support. Like our fishing games really starting to come around, like on the bass side. Not that they were ever completely against it, but they're just seeing how special it is up there and how amazing a fisheries we have. There was a tournament a couple weeks ago. It took 33 to win up there, and those aren't Florida strain. Those are pure northern strain largemouth. They're not F1s. I don't know that there's anywhere in the country that you can catch bigger pure northern strain.
Really?
Yeah.
In the whole country?
Not that I know of that are not F1s, not like all the ones I know of in California are blends of some sort. You know, pretty much everywhere across the southeast is that. Even Grand, like the biggest ones in Grand Lake, are F1s that they had stocked from years ago, even though the majority of the population is northern strain. So I don't know that there is anywhere else.
One of the biggest things about going out anywhere west is the cost. The cost, not just for bass, for the anglers, for everybody. Do you think now is the time to do that?
I think so. I mean, you can't do it for one event, though. It doesn't make sense. Like, I would hate it for one event because we would start down here, then I would drive home, then I'd have to go back.
That's what I was referring to.
You know, like I would. They were going to go to the Columbia River in 19, and I wish they would have, because it would have been amazing. But
would have changed your entire career.
Yeah, possibly. We won't get into that. But that would have been perfect because it was like a couple events, and then it was done, and we had a month and a half off. So I would have had a 2.5-hour drive home, been off for a month and a half, and then drove to New York. So if the schedule worked out like that, it would be awesome. But I think you need to do 2 or 3 events. Minimum 2. I think 3 would be awesome. I mean, really, there's enough bodies of water. You could do 4 out there if you really wanted, but
half a season.
Why not? Do Havasu, do the Delta or Clear Lake again, do one at like the Columbia River and one at Coeur d'Alene, or you could do 2 in Idaho. You do Coeur d'Alene and Pend Oreille, and guys could get a hotel room, stay in the same hotel room for 2 weeks, do back-to-back weeks, and you could fish Pend Oreille and Coeur d'Alene, and they'll both fish completely different, and they're 45 minutes from each other.
So I got to ask you this, and I'll catch some flack about it. But
I like these kind of things.
Saying,
it's the internet. Just
I
do
know
it,
what
baby.
I saw. To me, to go that far as an angler, and you know, I was fishing then.
Yeah.
Costs a lot of money. You have to consider that. Some people, just like when we were talking about the fines earlier, some people $5,000 means a lot too in their business.
Yeah.
Making decisions about it. We were talking about fines earlier, but this would be the same thing. Another $5,000 worth of expenses to go to those 2 tournaments, or not. Some people it would matter a lot to. Some people not. But here's the thing that I know I saw, that with all that expense aside, we never had good participation at weigh-ins. We never had good crowds.
Yeah.
Would we have that if we went to the area you're talking about?
I think you would. So what I've seen in my career is it doesn't matter where you're at in the country. It matters how much the local host promotes it and how much other stuff is going on. Like
it doesn't even matter how good the fishing is.
No.
Because
Look at
without
Orange.
calling names, we know there's places where we have our biggest crowds.
Yeah.
And
I
they're
showed
not
it.
there
I
to
called
just
the
see the
name,
fish.
sorry.
They're there to see the anglers.
Well, there's more
than
people that show up at the weigh-in in Waddington than live in the entire town.
Right.
They come from
They
all
put
over.
a lot into it.
So if you go to a place that the tournament doesn't get lost in the noise.
Yep.
Right.
That's the issue with California. There's a
Yeah.
lot of noise.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
A lot going on. A lot of other things
Yep.
for people to do. There's no throw on the area. It's just a fact.
Yep. And so I think if you were in the Northwest, you'd have a lot of people come from Oregon, Washington, Montana, Idaho, because they've never been able to come to anything. Like a lot of those people went to Oahe, and that's 1,000 miles.
Right.
That's the closest event we've ever had to my house. And they still came from those states to see it.
1,000 miles from your house is the closest.
Oahe.
It's the closest he's
Oahe
ever
It
been
was
to
the
home.
closest, but dang, I thought it was like 500 or
No,
something.
Oahe
That's
is
1,000?
1,000 miles from my
Holy
house.
cow.
It's still a 15-hour drive to get to Oahe.
Yeah, he's
Wow.
days from home.
Yeah, those states are big out there. It from right here to my house is 2,500 miles.
Wow.
So it's a long ways.
It's a long, long way. Dream, let's just play fantasy right now. Dream's place that we could have a tournament. Is there anywhere we haven't been that you'd love to see a tournament, both of you guys?
Oh, that's a tough one.
Yeah, it is. It is.
I want a big fish tournament at OHIV. I would love to see a world where, and I keep
Yeah, you
pushing
couldn't do it with a
Phoenix
full-
because they're the sponsor of
You
Big
couldn't do it
Bass.
with a full field.
No,
You'd have
that's
to have a special event, like an old like Mega Bucks
Yeah.
type thing or something.
if you win Big Bass, if you win Phoenix Boats Big Bass, you qualify for said event. So you
Yeah.
win one. So you take the 10 Big Bass winners, and at the end of the year,
Not daily, but
no, not daily,
For
the
the whole
overall
tournament.
tournament. So you win Big Bass at the tournament, then you go to the Phoenix Boats Big Bass Bash at OH. And it would be so cool to just see how different. Now all of a sudden you're not fishing for 5. Now you're
Yeah.
fishing a big fish tournament. And it would be so cool for
I'm
me
all
to
about
sit
it.
and watch you guys and how you. That
I'm
would
all
be
about it.
awesome.
I like that.
that would be super
Absolutely.
cool. I would love to go to like Okeechobee in May or June.
Really?
Yeah, not February. I want to go in like May or June where you're just throwing a frog. I want to go to Florida when weather is not a factor. Like where it's stable, hot, the fish aren't thinking about spawning or anything else other than just eating. The water's hot, the bass are feeding. Now I know, was it last year they had that tournament that
Where all the 30-pound bags were
like
weighed in?
45 bags over 30 pounds.
Yeah.
Someone will comment and correct exactly
Yeah.
what the number is, but
We're wrong about a lot of stuff.
yeah, that doesn't happen all the time, but I know that a lot of the best fishing happens like when it's miserably hot.
So would you sacrifice going to smallmouth world to be down in Florida that time of year?
No,
because
just-
you'd have to do one or the other. You couldn't do
No,
both.
Just do it instead of like Smith Lake or something. Like go in June, go in May or June. It doesn't have to be August. I think May or June would be the best. So I would just like to see like some of the bodies of water that we go to, because there's only so many places that we can go that will host 100 boats and have enough resources, right? Enough lodging and things like that. So there's only so many venues we can go to, but go to them at different times of the year.
Yeah. So one issue with that a lot of people don't think about goes back to if the area promotes us being there and really, rallies the troops and people drive for hundreds of miles to come to it. That's usually in a time period where they don't have a lot of other things going on, and they want bass to draw, to fill up the hotels and the restaurants and that sort of thing. Winyah Bay doesn't have the biggest fish in the world, granted, but it would be so much better if we were there June, July, August. But they don't need people in their restaurants and hotels in June, July, August because the beach is right there and those places are already full.
Yeah.
So it makes it difficult for those host cities to want to promote us being there to draw those crowds. It's just another thing that Eric Lopez has to deal with when you're talking to these cities. We don't need you here then.
Yeah.
We want you here then. Well, it would be, no, you're on your own if it's just another piece of the puzzle a lot of people don't even think about.
And, to back up your point about the host city being engaged, our two biggest venues ever are Orange and Waddington.
Yep.
And the unique thing that connects them is, Orange, every single business is part of that weigh-in. Every single business supports that weigh-in. The exact same thing in Waddington. I used to make a joke, and it's true. But literally every business, including the funeral parlor in town, had a booth at the way. It was a big, but it's kind of their Olympics. But the cool thing about both those events are connected in the way that before Waddington, New York ever happened earlier in that season, and quite often it happens where you have a host city that'll come visit an elite to see the lay of the land. The folk from Waddington came to Orange to see how it was done. So it shows how important that is for everybody to be involved.
Yeah. It is. And Orange, Texas is great. I mean, they do a phenomenal job. And for Waddington to look at their model and then go to – I fished that first Waddington tournament. And during official practice, I remember thinking there is – because everybody was all – it's going to be these huge crowds, tens of thousands of people. I'm like, there is no way. There is no way. These people have been eating cicadas out of cereal bowls. There is no way. They will be, and it freaking is phenomenal.
Yeah,
they
it's massive.
did a tremendous job.
I would also like to see a pre-spawn smallmouth tournament. The tricky part is that
Being able to keep them.
a lot of the places, like at my house, you could, you can, because they don't close the season. But a lot of the northern fisheries that we go to, they have catch and release seasons only, or some places you couldn't even fish for them.
Yeah.
And so, if we could find a place that did allow that, right, a catch and weigh format to be able to go have a pre-spawn event where it's jerk baits and crankbaits and like spin like that, I think would be phenomenal.
Yeah,
because nobody's got to do that or really see that.
Right.
You know, the only thing we've ever done that was pre-spawn was
so dumb.
Yeah, I mean it'd be amazing, right?
I remember one. It was before you were fishing. It was actually the first couple of years I fished at Kentucky Lake. Pre-spawn smallmouth there, and then
Chuck
1 year at
Economo,
Pickwick.
wasn't it, with the big bat?
Oh, yeah.
Isn't that,
Dude, I'm
Mark
talking about,
Menendez.
Way before we had the technology we had now. 25, 27, 26, 28, all smallmouth, all pre-spawn. I mean, it's just,
Yeah.
So I'm with you. I'd like to see some more of that.
Yep. It's just a different animal.
Yeah.
When you get that.
Well, anything can happen, but you know what? They said that three idiots can't just sit here and talk for an hour, and people won't listen. But you guys actually did, and I thank you for doing this. For those of you that haven't heard, today's obviously been postponed till tomorrow. We're going to fish a 4-day event. Tornadoes and hail and all sorts of stuff, different bands of weather coming through here. It's pretty nice right now, but another band's supposed to be heading this way. So competition got pushed back a day, so we're going to fish Friday and Saturday. Everybody, top 50 fish on semifinal Sunday and the top 10 fish on championship Monday. Brandon Polnick, are you going to be part of that?
I will be here if I'm fishing. My kids and my wife are supposed to fly out of Alabama on Tuesday morning, which means we'd have to drive all day Monday. So if I'm not fishing, I may be gone.
I'm going to put you on the spot. Usually we know whether we've got a top 10 car or a top 50 car. You know, the NASCAR drivers.
Oh, you got
They're like, hey, I got a top 5 car, or I've got, man, it'll be a victory if I can finish in this car top 5, because it's only a top 10 car. Do you have a top 10 car this week, or do you have a top 50 car this week?
Based on my practice, I do not have a top 10 car. But it does not mean that I cannot make the decisions during the event and get a
You
top
just need
10.
a certain
I'm making a decision right now.
And that happens.
I'm making a decision right. Stop talking. They're rolling the credits. We're done.
Okay.
Stop it. Let's go have lunch.
All right.
Deal.
Yes!